Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I am Valsa Williams and with me is Abhishek Mukhopadhyay with the Midday News. The headlines. Rajya Sabha witnesses adjournments following opposition uproar over the issue of fuel price hike. GST on COVID-related medicines and instruments reduced from 12% to 5%, informs government. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia flags off 33 ambulances from New Delhi. Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur to launch the Broadcast Seva portal this afternoon in New Delhi. Polling underway for biennial elections to Bihar Legislative Council for 24 local authorities constituencies. Pakistan's Supreme Court to decide the fate of Prime Minister Imran Khan, Human Rights Commission of Pakistan and Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists condemn rejection of vote of no confidence. In Sri Lanka, 36-hour curfew imposed in the wake of political unrest lifted. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister to meet to decide the future of the government. In IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad will take on the Lucknow Super Giants at the D.Y. Patil Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. And in hockey, India beat England 4-3 in second match of double-leg FIH Pro League tie in Bhubaneswar. The Rajya Sabha has been adjourned till 2 p.m. following opposition uproar over the issue of fuel price hike. When the House met after the first adjournment at 12 noon, the opposition members from Congress, TMC, Left and DMK trooped into the well raising the issue. Amid noisy scenes, the Deputy Chairman tried to run the question hour but in vain. Later the House was adjourned till 2 p.m. Earlier, when the House met for the day, Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu disallowed the adjournment notices moved by the members from Congress, TMC, Left and DMK over the issue, saying they had enough opportunity to raise it during the discussion on the finance bill. Following this, opposition members created noisy scenes leading to adjournment of the House till 12 noon. In the morning, 6 newly elected Rajya Sabha members from Assam, Kerala and Nagaland took oath. They are Pavitra Margarita and S. Phangnon Konyak of the BJP, Ringra Narzari of the UPPL, P. Santosh Kumar and A. Rahim from the Left, and J.B. Mathur Hisham of the Congress. Minister of State for Finance Pankaj Chaudhary has said the government had reduced the GST on COVID-related medicines and instruments from 12% to 5%. On expanding health insurance coverage, Mr. Chaudhary added that the government has introduced varied insurance schemes under Ayushman Bharat. He informed that of the overall coverage, 66% is funded by central government schemes. Replying to questions in the Lok Sabha, the minister said GST rates and exemptions on all services are prescribed on the recommendations of the GST Council. The Minister of State for Finance, Pankaj Chaudhary, today informed the Lok Sabha that the country's foreign exchange reserve (FER) position is currently comfortable. In a written reply, he said it is being closely monitored by the government and the Reserve Bank of India in the context of the emerging geopolitical situation to ensure stability in India's external sector. Mr. Chaudhary said the country's FER, which stood at over $635 billion as on the 30th of September last year, has declined to around $620 billion on the 18th of last month.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today said that retail investors have invested confidence in the market of the country and investment cannot be gauged just by looking at foreign institutional investors and foreign portfolio investment. While replying in Lok Sabha during question hour today, Nirmala Sitharaman said,
the inflow of FDIs, which is remaining unabated, and India is the highest receiver of FDI since before COVID, and that continues during COVID, in fact continues very much significantly during COVID and subsequently also. It is that which indicates if the money which is coming in is staying invested in this country, thereby creating jobs and prospects for us, and not by indicating only the FIIs and FPIs.
In question hour, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor raised the issue of withdrawal of investment by FIIs and FPIs in the recent months. Finance Minister said,
FIIs and FPIs may come and go, but today Indian retail investors have proven that even if they come and go, any shock that may come is now taken care of because of the shock absorbing capacity the Indian retailer has brought into Indian markets.
The centre today said that in order to boost medical tourism in the country, the government has formulated a national strategy and roadmap for medical and wellness tourism. In a written reply to Lok Sabha Tourism Minister G. Kishan Reddy said that the strategy document envisions marketing India as a medical and wellness tourism destination under Hill in India brand. Mr. Reddy said this will be promoted as sub-brand of Incredible India on the digital platforms and global media campaign of the ministry.
Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change Bhupendra Yadav told the Lok Sabha that there were 1,213 air quality instruments operating in 465 cities.
कुल मिलाकर पूरे देश में 1213 ये एयर क्वालिटी को मापने के लिए यंत्र लगाए गए हैं। इसमें जो केवल दिल्ली के पास नहीं है, इस पूरे कार्यक्रम के अंतर्गत 465 सिटीज और 26 ग्रामीण क्षेत्र उसके अंतर्गत ये लगाए गए हैं। इसलिए जो हम लोगों ने एयर क्वालिटी के जो ये यंत्र लगाए हैं, ये पूरे देश के संदर्भ में और पूरे देश में जो वायु की गुणवत्ता है उसको देख करके लगाए हैं।
He added they were installed after considering the air quality. Mr. Yadav was responding to questions by the Pilibhit MP Varun Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi said 63 cities out of 100 categorized as most polluted cities on earth were in India. The government has agreed to release 5 million barrels of crude oil from its strategic petroleum reserves in November last year in consultation and parallelly with other major global energy consumers, including the USA. In a written reply in the Rajya Sabha, Minister of State for Petroleum Rameshwar Teli said the centre is ready to take all appropriate action for mitigating market volatility and calming the rise in crude oil prices. He said India's major sources of crude oil imports are Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Nigeria and USA. The minister added that less than 1% of total crude oil was imported from Russia in the financial year 2021-22 till January.
A total of 53 new sewerage treatment plants have been completed in the last 3 years under Namami Gange program. A maximum of 30 plants have been completed in Uttarakhand, 9 in UP and 5 in Bihar during the period. This was stated by the Minister of State for Jal Shakti, Visheshwar Tudu, in a written reply in the Rajya Sabha today. He informed that 160 sewerage infrastructure projects have been taken up under the program with a sanction cost of over 24,632 crore rupees for creation and rehabilitation of around 5,000 million litres per day of sewage treatment plant capacity. He said out of this, 78 projects have been completed, resulting in laying of around 4,000 kilometre sewerage network. Over 48% rural households in the country have received tap water supply in the homes so far. In a written reply in the Rajya Sabha today, Minister of State for Jal Shakti, Prahlad Singh Patel said, out of 19.32 crore rural households in the country, 9.35 crore households are reported to have tap water supply in the homes so far. He informed that in Goa, Telangana, Haryana, Puducherry, Andaman and Nicobar, Dadra Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, provision for tap water supply to all rural households has been made. The minister said about 3.8 crore rural households are expected to be covered through tap water supply during 2022-23 under the Jal Jeevan Mission. Mr. Patel added that 60,000 crore rupees have been allocated in this regard.
More than 17 crore workers in the unorganized sector of the country registered on eShram portal are getting the benefit of Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana and have been provided with Ayushman cards. In a written reply to a question in the Lok Sabha today, the Union Minister for Labour and Employment said more than 27 crore workers in the unorganized sector in the country have been registered on the eShram portal, which is providing them benefits of different government schemes. He further said more than 300 crore rupees have been utilized in the last 2 years on the eShram database project. The workers registered on the portal are entitled to get the benefit of an accidental death or disability insurance cover of 2 lakh rupees for a year. Certain categories are covered under Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana also. The government has decided to establish an Eklavya model residential schools EMRS in every block with more than 50% scheduled tribes ST population and at least 20,000 tribal persons. This information was given by the Minister of State for Tribal Affairs, Mrs. Renuka Singh Saruta, in the Lok Sabha today. She said the target is to establish 740 EMRSs in the country. A total 679 EMRSs have been sanctioned till the 22nd of last month. Out of these, 367 EMRSs are functional. Mrs. Saruta said under pre-matric and post-matric scholarship, the government provides scholarships to around 33 to 35 lakh ST students every year.
Union Minister Nitin Gadkari today said that if we want to fulfill Prime Minister Narendra Modi's dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat, then our MSME export should be more than 50% and its contribution in the total GDP should be more than 40%. Gems and jewellery is such a sector which has the potential to boost the MSME export. He was addressing the second day of All India Jam and Jewellery Domestic Council Show in Mumbai. He said the gems and jewellery sector's export volume must be 25 billion USD. Polling is underway peacefully for biennial elections to Bihar Legislative Council for 24 local authorities constituencies. No untoward incident has been reported from any parts of the state. Voting, which began at 8 a.m., will end at 4 p.m. Over 135,000 electorates will decide the fate of 185 candidates. 534 booths have been set to ensure free and fair polls. The electorate comprises the elected representatives of urban local bodies and Panchayati Raj institutions, as well as MPs and MLAs. BJP and Janata Dal United are contesting elections jointly, while RJD and Congress are fighting elections separately. The counting of votes will be held on April 7th.
Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia today flagged off 33 ambulances from New Delhi, including 13 advanced life support ambulances and 20 basic life support ambulances. Under funds allocated for COVID response in India, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies earmarked some funds for ALS ambulances, BLS ambulances, mobile health units and mobile blood collection vans. Over 184 crore 70 lakh vaccine doses have been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The Health Ministry said over 2,84,000 doses were administered. Yesterday, the recovery rate is currently at 98.76%. Over 1,300 people recovered in the last 24 hours. Over 900 new cases were recorded in the same period, while 13 deaths were reported.
Uttar Pradesh government launched School Chalo Abhiyan today to ensure 100% enrollment in primary and upper primary schools. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath kicked off the campaign from Shravasti, which is an aspirational district and has one of the lowest literacy rates in the state. A report.
After a gap of 2 years, the schools are reopening in April and the state government is putting all efforts to bring children back to schools. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, while launching the School Chalo Abhiyan from Shravasti, said the government has successfully handled the challenge of COVID pandemic, but now a bigger task is to get children back to schools. He added, it is the duty of every parent to enroll their child in school. The Chief Minister said in the last 5 years, the state government has revamped the schools under Operation Kayakal. He said basic facilities like infrastructure, toilets and electricity were provided to primary and upper primary schools. He praised the legislators, government officials and the alumni for adopting the schools and helping them to revamp. Aditya Shukla, AIR News, Gorakhpur.
Today is the last day of the Poshan Pakhwara being celebrated by Women and Child Development Ministry. The emphasis of Poshan Pakhwara this year is on two broad areas. These are identification and celebration of healthy child and integration of modern and traditional practices for healthy India within the thematic areas around Poshan Mitra. Our correspondent reports that activities were focused around gender-sensitive water management and generating awareness in women about the importance of water conservation and promoting rainwater harvesting structures, including in Anganwadi centers.
Poshan Abhiyan, which was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 8 March 2018, has reached a long way in ensuring wider people's participation. Poshan Abhiyan endeavors to improve nutritional outcomes in a holistic manner in convergence with other ministries. Behavioral change at individual and community level is an important component to achieve the desired goals of Poshan Abhiyan. Clarion calls from Prime Minister on various occasions, including Mann Ki Baat, have further helped to sensitize communities on issues issues concerning nutrition through mass public participation. Ministry of Women and Child Development is the nodal ministry for coordinating activities during the Poshan Pakhwada. In the states and union territories, Department of Women and Child Development and Social Welfare Department are the nodal departments for Poshan Pakhwada. With Anupam Mishra, Suparna Saikya, AIR News, Delhi.
Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur will launch the Broadcast Seva portal this afternoon in New Delhi. Keeping in view Prime Minister Narendra Modi's initiative for ease of doing business, Digital India and Make in India, the Broadcast Seva portal will provide a single-point facility to the stakeholders to request for required permission, registrations, licenses, etc. issued by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. This portal will provide easy communication between the applicant and different stakeholders for faster processing of applications.
You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Rajya Sabha witnesses adjournments following opposition uproar over the issue of fuel price hike. GST on COVID-related medicines and instruments reduced from 12% to 5%, informs government. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia flags off 33 ambulances from New Delhi. Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur to launch the Broadcast Seva portal this afternoon in New Delhi. Polling underway for biennial elections to Bihar Legislative Council for 24 local authorities constituencies. Chief of Army Staff General M.M. Narwane to call on the Minister of Defence, Chief of Singapore Army and other senior dignitaries in Singapore. Pakistan Supreme Court to decide the fate of Prime Minister Imran Khan. Human Rights Commission of Pakistan and Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists condemn rejection of vote of no confidence. In Sri Lanka, 36-hour curfew imposed in the wake of the political unrest lifted. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister to meet to decide the future of the government. In IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad will take on Lucknow Super Giants at the D.Y. Patil Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. And in hockey, India beat England 4-3 in the second match of the double-leg FIH Pro League tie in Bhubaneswar. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on the Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts.
चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो कुछ वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे।
क्या आप कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हैं? ऑल इंडिया रेडियो के नए प्रोग्राम अभ्यास में हमारे विशेषज्ञ आपके सवालों का देंगे जवाब। शनिवार रात 9:30 बजे FM गोल्ड पर। इस बार का विषय है इंडियन पॉलिटी एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। आप इससे जुड़े सवाल व्हाट्सएप करें 9289094044 पर या सवाल ईमेल भी कर सकते हैं abhyas.airnews@gmail.com पर। भारतीय संविधान और राजनीति विषय पर आपके प्रश्न हमें 5 अप्रैल तक मिल जाने चाहिए। आपका अभ्यास हमारा प्रयास।
Welcome back to the Midday News. Chief of Army Staff General M.M. Narwane left for Singapore yesterday on a 3-day visit. During the visit, he will meet senior military and civilian leadership of the country. The visit aims to further enhance existing defence relations between India and Singapore. General Narwane will lay a wreath at the Kranji War Memorial today. He is scheduled to call on the Minister of Defence, Chief of Singapore Army and other senior dignitaries, where he will discuss avenues for enhancing India-Singapore defence relations. In Hungary, nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban scored a 4th consecutive win in yesterday's general election. Preliminary results showed Orban's Fidesz party leading with 53.1% of votes versus 35% for Marquis' opposition alliance. Fidesz was also winning 88 of 106 single-member constituencies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban on his victory in the parliamentary elections.
In Sri Lanka, 36-hour curfew was imposed in the wake of the political unrest was lifted today, with public transportation resuming normal services. All public transportation, including trains, Sri Lankan Transport Board (SLTB) and private buses resumed their services from 6 a.m. after the island-wide curfew imposed by the government on Saturday was lifted, according to media reports. As the country faces its worst economic crisis of all time, following anti-government protests by people, the Sri Lankan cabinet resigned en masse on last night, except Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister are scheduled to meet today and decide the future of the government. However, the decisions on resignations of the state ministers were yet to be finalized. Pakistan's Supreme Court is expected to decide the fate of embattled Prime Minister Imran Khan today, following a day of political turmoil. Mr. Khan has faced an attempt to oust him from office in recent days, but members of Mr. Khan's party yesterday blocked a vote of no confidence in the PM and dissolved Parliament. Mr. Khan had claimed the vote was part of a US-led conspiracy to remove him, but the US has denied this. Furious opposition politicians have filed a petition in the Supreme Court to rule on whether the move to block the vote was constitutional. The court is expected to decide by today.
Now let's listen to our special program Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव।
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. Birth of a Nation. India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On 4th of April 1914, the Japanese steamship Komagata Maru sailed from Hong Kong to Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. Komagata Maru incident is infamous as it was one of the several incidents in the early 20th century in which exclusion laws in Canada and the United States were used to exclude immigrants of Asian origin.
Komagata Maru was carrying 376 passengers from Punjab province in British India. On reaching Vancouver on the 23rd of May 1914, they were refused entry into Canada under the Immigration Act of 1910. It was forced to start the return journey of its Indian passengers on the 23rd of July. The ship and passengers arrived at Bajbaj near Calcutta on the 29th of September 1914. But in Calcutta too, they were prevented from disembarking by the British administration.
Upon entry into the harbour, Komagata Maru was stopped by the British gunboat and the passengers were placed under guard. The government of the British Raj saw the men on Komagata Maru as dangerous political agitators. The British government suspected that nationalists were using the incident to instill patriotic feeling. Baba Gurdeep Singh, who had originally hired the ship, wanted to walk into Calcutta and meet the governor as well as to take the Granth Sahib to Gurdwara in Howrah.
This resulted in a heated argument between the police and Gurdeep Singh. A rumor spread that Gurdeep Singh was being arrested. This resulted in anguish, leading to a fight in which the policemen fired about 177 rounds, killing 26 people and forcing many to flee. Many people were arrested and imprisoned or sent to their villages and kept under village arrest for the duration of the First World War.
In the wake of the incident, prominent Ghadarites including Barakatullah, Taraknath Das and Sohan Singh used the incident as a rallying point to recruit members for the Ghadar movement. In 1952, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru inaugurated a memorial to the Komagata Maru martyrs near the Bajbaj, West Bengal. We salute the great martyrs.
also remember freedom fighter Jai Dayal Bhatnagar, who was born on the 4th of April 1812 in erstwhile Bharatpur state, now in Rajasthan. Along with Mehrab Khan, Jai Dayal organized and led the first war of Indian independence against the Kota ruler and the British in Kota in 1857. He directed the military operations against the British and was involved in provoking the independence activists to attack the Agency House in Kota on the 15th of October 1857.
Following the siege of Kota, Jai Dayal and Mehrab Khan took over the charge of administration of Kota state for several months. However, after the defeat of the independence activists in March 1858, Jai Dayal went into hiding. Jai Dayal was betrayed by an informer and was arrested on the 15th of April 1860. Jai Dayal was sentenced to death and executed by hanging near the Agency House in Kota on the 17th of September 1860. We salute the great freedom fighter.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
The Festival of Nature, Sarhul, is being celebrated across the state of Jharkhand today with great enthusiasm and fervour after a gap of 2 years. Seeing a recent decline in the number of COVID-19 cases in the state government has relaxed norms for taking out Sarhul and other religious processions. In Rajasthan, the festival of Gangor is being celebrated today across the state with traditional reverence and gaiety. Women are praying for happiness and prosperity by worshipping Isar God, that is, Lord Shiva and Parvati, at homes and temples. On this occasion, the royal procession of Gangor will be taken out after almost 2 years due to the COVID pandemic in the capital, Jaipur. More from our correspondent.
People from across the state and tourists from different places and abroad reach Jaipur to witness the royal procession of Gangor rides. The royal Gangor procession will be taken out this evening from City Palace of Jaipur. More than 100 folk artists will perform folk dances before the royal procession. The ride is decorated with rangoli. Special arrangements have been made for traffic in the entire walled city area of Jaipur. Gangor procession will also take place in different cities of the state today. The 5-day Gangor Mahotsav has started in Udaipur today. Jitendra Dwivedi, AIR News, Jaipur.
In hockey, ace drag flicker Harmanpreet Singh scored a hat-trick and in the process completed a century of international goals as India beat England 4-3 in the second match of the double-leg FIH Pro League tie in Bhubaneswar yesterday. In IPL cricket today, Sunrisers Hyderabad will take on Lucknow Super Giants at the D.Y. Patil Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. In cricket, Punjab Kings defeated the Chennai Super Kings in the IPL 2022 at the Brabant Stadium in Mumbai last night.
Now let us take a quick look at the weather forecast for today. National capital Delhi is likely to experience strong surface winds. Minimum temperature was 19 degrees Celsius, while maximum is expected to be around 39 degrees. Mumbai will have a mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature was 22, maximum expected around 33. Chennai will have partly cloudy sky. Temperature will vary between 27 and 34. Kolkata will also experience partly cloudy sky. The city observed minimum temperature of 27 degrees. Maximum will be around 34 degrees. And now before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Rajya Sabha adjourned for the day following opposition uproar over the issue of fuel price hike. GST on COVID-related medicines and instruments reduced from 12% to 5%, informs government. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia flags off 33 ambulances from New Delhi. Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur to launch Broadcast Seva portal this afternoon in New Delhi. Polling underway for biennial elections to Bihar Legislative Council for 24 local authorities constituencies. Chief of Army Staff General M.M. Naravane to call on the Minister of Defence, Chief of Singapore Army and other senior dignitaries in Singapore. Pakistan's Supreme Court to decide the fate of Prime Minister Imran Khan. Human Rights Commission of Pakistan and Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists condemn rejection of vote of no confidence. In Sri Lanka, 36-hour curfew imposed in the wake of political unrest lifted. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister to meet to decide the future of the government. In IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad will take on Lucknow Super Giants at D.Y. Patil Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. And with that, we end the midday news.